Good morning, everyone. My name is Abzal, and I am a PhD student at Daniel's lab, coming from University of Tübingen. Today, I would like to give you all a short introduction into Jupyter notebooks. So, we're gonna use Jupyter notebooks for, I guess, the Matimus session today, and especially for all the sessions tomorrow, but you don't need to install anything for this session today. You're going to use Google Colab, which I would show you guys later. So yeah, you would need to know how to use Jupyter notebooks for all these sessions. So just a small introduction about why Jupyter notebook is a popular choice for data analysis. Because it's been just 10 years old, and it mainly works with this interactive Python kernel, shortly called as IPython kernel, and mainly developed with the three core programming languages, Julia, Python, and R. That's why the name Jupyter. But now it supports several other languages. And this is just a little screenshot from how the Jupyter notebook looks like. As you can, okay, I don't have a pointer here. But as you can see here in the data, you can see the text block, and then there's also this install.packages, which is like the code block. I would also get into these things later, show you around. But then this tool is great because you can do interactive computing. Usually with scripts like .r or .py scripts, which you use, which is kind of like static scripting. So when you get these scripts, you might get a little bit overwhelmed if you're new to scripting languages, kind of like a beginner user. Whereas with Jupyter notebooks, if you are like just a beginner or an intermediate level, even for advanced, especially for the beginner and intermediate levels, it's really great because you could kind of modify it as you want, because this is practically a notebook. You could include the text and then also the code blocks. Hence, it's kind of like interactive. For each of the line, you see the output immediately. And then it supports many languages, not just these three languages, but also several other languages like Ruby and yeah, like the Julia. And the text support is rich. You could practically add in images if you want to add in equations, whatever that would make you comfortable with your notebook so that you have the clear picture. And platform independent, you could easily install it in Windows, Mac OS, Linux, everywhere. And from a practical perspective, so I started using Jupyter Notebook just last year, and it's highly like reproducible. Like when you're sharing the notebooks to kind of like biologists who are not kind of familiar with programming and scripts, you can nicely say what they're going to expect in the next line, and when they run the next in the text cell and in the code cell, when they run, they're going to get the things. So also, even if you go back after 2 years, even if you didn't share the data with it, since they could also see how the data looks like in the code output blocks as well. So even if you didn't share the data, they kind of get an idea that, okay, this is how the data used to look like in case you have large amount of data. You cannot always like send the data. And yeah, if it's kind of like something that's 2 years back, most of the time it's difficult for you also to send all those large data, find it. In that sense, if you have the Jupyter notebook, it's highly useful in terms of reproducibility and also, yeah, shareability. And once again, you don't need to install it locally for today's and especially for tomorrow's session. But then I just want to show you guys how you could install it locally so that when you go home, like you can install it locally for the other purposes. So the main thing you need is the Python, because as I said, it mainly works with the Python as the core base. And you could install it with pip, which is the Python package manager. If you're comfortable with working with command line, you could just install your pip, install a Jupyter Notebook with a normal pip install and then call it as Jupyter Notebook from your terminal window. But then for R uses, you gotta then also go install your R separately, then go to your R terminal and make the IR kernel so that you make R visible for the Jupyter Notebook, so that when you write like R codes in the Jupyter notebook, it understands that, okay, this is an R code, else it wouldn't understand. So whichever like programming language you're shifting to, you need to install the kernel for that, but I don't know about the other ones because I mainly use the R language. And yeah, once you install your R kernel and then make it visible for the Jupyter notebook, then you could again go to your terminal window and call Jupyter notebook. And yeah, you're in the Jupyter notebook environment. But then you could also go with Anaconda Navigator, which is kind of easy, very beginner friendly. You could basically go to the link, download it, and one more thing I missed. So pip installation is also better if you have already installed Python, then you could just pip install Jupyter Notebook. But even if you don't have Python installed, Anaconda does it for you. You just gotta install the Anaconda Navigator GUI. And then once you install, when you open it, this is how the homepage looks like. We are in the base environment, as you could see, the base root. And everything here is based on Python. And from here, you could practically click on this launch button for Jupyter Notebook, and it takes you there. But for our people, you could also go to the next one, the environments. And here you could, I already created our environment for myself, but then you could go to this create button and then press on create, and it shows, like, if you want to also include Python, you can name it as you want. And while you're checking the tick boxes, you got to check both Python and R. Just because you want R, you should not be just checking in R, because it also needs the Python information to run. Then you just create it. That's it. It basically installs all the dependencies necessary for it to run. And yeah, then from there, you could go launch your Jupyter Notebook. In case you don't see this launch widget, you could, again, you have to go to the R terminal, the Conda terminal window, and there you could just do Conda install Jupyter or just activate your particular environment, and then activate Jupyter Notebook from there. I can quickly, and this is how it looks like. I could quickly show you how. So yeah, when you go to your environment here, oh, sorry. But, so yeah, it should automatically open with your default browser, but I had some issues. So yeah, we are here. If you have your notebook here, you could just click on it and then go with it. I'm just going to create a new one. And you get the option to choose which kernel. I'm going to just choose R. Yeah, I just wanted to quickly show how it is. So this is a code cell. You could just press the code cell, and then it's going to give you the output. And then you could write in something. And yeah, you're gonna have that information as well as your markdown cell. And if you want to remove, you could, if you want to add, and if you want to remove some cells, you could use that. And you also have the option to download it, save it in different formats like HTML, if you want to, save it as a PDF. And pretty much that's all I wanted to show. And there's also Jupyter Lab, but I don't want to go into that, which is practically when you have multiple notebooks, which helps you to look at all the things nicely. And also you can have headings, which is also kind of cool. So this way you can also have different headings and nicely section your notebook. So yeah, that's all about Jupyter Notebook. And about Google Colab. So Google Colab, you could practically access all these Jupyter Notebooks in cloud-based online by Google Collaboratory. The only thing you need is Google account. With the base account like the HTTPS Colab.Google, you're gonna only use Python. However, if you want to use R codes, you have to go to the Colab to R to have the notebook in the R format. And so with the good things about Colab and Jupyter Notebook is that since Google is cloud-based, of course, you could just run the notebooks online. If it's a short notebook, it's nicer. But one thing I find it difficult is that with local installation, if you have large data, you could practically access those large files locally. However, with Colab, you have to input all those files, and you also have to remember to download all those files, even for the sessions that you're going to work today and for tomorrow. You have to remember to download all those files because they're going to stay in the Colab environment. And yeah, if you're just working with Python, it's also easy to just mount your Google Drive and access your files from there, but it's not possible with R. And other things, like especially with when you're installing many packages, the Jupyter Notebook, since it is local installation, you're going to need it to install it once, and then for the rest of the use, you can just call those libraries and use it. But with Google Colab, you have to install it every time when you use the Colab environment, which is kind of time consuming. And also, if you stay more than 90 minutes idle, it will kind of delete all your variables. Then you have to run the entire Colab notebook again. And also, if you overuse it more than 12 hours, it's gonna forget all the variables and you've got to rerun it again. But it's a great tool for small data, but not so great for large ones. In that case, I would install it locally. And I guess that's all I wanted to say, you guys, about Jupyter Notebook. Thank you.